Right, let's talk about the biggest collapse in finals history. In a game where the Spurs held a 29-point lead, the Knicks somehow came out with a win, making it 3-1 in the series and putting the Knicks on a fast track to their first NBA championship since 1973. This, of course, backs the Spurs into a corner that only one team has managed to get out of an NBA history, and they had a very, very, very special player at the head of that team. So one of the big questions now is, can Wemby manage to play at that level of hoops? In this video, we're going to look at just how you blow a 29-point lead in the NBA Finals by abandoning what was working earlier on in the game, and of course that pivotal moment with OJ Anunoby that might have just decided this NBA season. With just under 2 quarters of basketball to play, it did look like the Spurs were going to even up this series 2-2. They were absolutely destroying the Knicks, and you could literally hear a pin drop in Madison Square Garden. I mean, they spent the first half playing nearly perfect basketball and led at the half 76-49. They almost had 50 points in the first quarter. It's the largest halftime lead by a road team in finals history, full stop. That's how much like the Spurs were just dominating the Knicks, and they really needed this game. I mean, this series would look unimaginably different if it was 2-2 right now instead of 3-1 to the Knicks. I mean, 3-1 is such a difficult hold. You know, they win on Saturday night in San Antonio, then you have to go back to Madison Square Garden again, win in Madison Square Garden, which they've already made to look very difficult, and then you have to go to San Antonio again. I mean, technically anything can happen in a Game 7, but that's if you win the next two, and that does mean that they will give the Knicks even like another opportunity to win the series. I can't fully explain how much of a hole the Spurs are in right now. As I say, in that first half, Wemby was controlling both ends of the floor, but then in the second half, he kind of backed off a bit. They weren't running as many sets for Wemby, and the Spurs offense as a whole became much more passive and less clinical, whereas the Knicks didn't let the big league get into their head, and Jalen Brunson looked fantastic, kind of keeping the Knicks as a whole more controlled, quite contained, and like very calm despite the ramifications of them losing the game. They of course end up winning 107-106, which does make it the largest comeback win in finals history, on the back of 36 points by Brunson, 7 threes for Anunoby. And obviously people are going to say that the Spurs lost the game on the last possession, but they didn't really. It wasn't just Fox's awful decision to take that layup, and it was very bad. He should have run the clock down and tried to get a last second shot and not give the Knicks even an opportunity to really get one last shot, but he took the layup. I mean, even though that wasn't the catalyst for the loss, they looked like the weaker, more panicked team for the whole of the second half. And considering how on fire they were in the first half, it did come as a big surprise, but they just didn't look as controlled of the game. I don't want to say that they got comfortable, because I don't think that was the case, but I do think that having such a big lead perhaps altered the way they played and the way that Mitch Johnson coached the game.
Hi guys.
The most frustrating part of this for Spurs fans won't be that they lost. Losing against this Knicks team in Madison Square Garden isn't necessarily a stain on your record. I mean, they're a good team, and Madison Square Garden, as we've mentioned many times, is a very formidable arena to play in. It's how they lost that's really going to drive them mad. I mean, like a 29-point lead in the NBA Finals, you just can't lose that. It's diabolical. Wemby finished with 24 points and 13 rebounds, which was pretty good, all things considered. But the main question is, why wasn't he touching the ball more and more as the lead evaporated? Instead, they tried to diversify their offense a bit too much, in my opinion. Sometimes that's a good thing, don't get me wrong. But in situations like this, you just got to give it to your star player and let him go to work. As we got later and later in this game, we saw more and more stagnant possessions and more perimeter play, which led to late shot clocks, late offenses, and very poor shots in a lot of cases. The Spurs, as I said, almost looked too comfortable with their lead and just stopped forcing the issue and hitting their shots. There are a few questions you have to ask of Mitch Johnson. He did make some very interesting decisions here. I think De'Aaron Fox played too long, which obviously culminated in that very awful mistake in the last second, which is interesting because earlier on in the season, a lot of Spurs fans were clamouring for him to play De'Aaron Fox more because of the turnovers that we'd seen by, the likes of Devin Vassell. But I have to say, in this game, De'Aaron Fox, bit of a mistake. One thing we have to ask is, was this just a huge Spurs collapse, or was this a historic Knicks comeback? In my opinion, it's a bit of a cop-out answer to say it's a little bit of both, but I really do think it was a little bit of both. I mean, to lose in such incredible fashion, you have to put some of the blame on the Spurs. Of course you do. But the Knicks had to perform as well, and I think it was a combined of the Spurs getting too comfortable, too many turnovers, not enough good shots, with the Knicks hitting their shots. Jalen Brunson, especially OJ Anunoby, taking over the game. I think if you had to tip the scale one way or the other, most of it has to go to the Knicks. I think they had to really knuckle down and really perform super, super well to get back into this game, because it's a huge, huge deficit, and it would be so easy for both the players and, almost, in fairness, the coaches to let their heads drop and almost give up on the game, throw in the towel. But I really think they just played excellently, and they really kept their foot on the gas. And I think that was something you have to give them a lot of credit for, and it's something they've done a lot in this series. As early on in all of the games, the Spurs have looked like the best team, and they've looked like the team that's going to take the game in the end. And the Knicks have never given up, and they've always forced the issue, and that's the reason for the Spurs having so many late-game collapses. If the Knicks had given up and they weren't really pressuring the ball anymore, then the Spurs wouldn't have made any of these mistakes. But it's the Knicks' tenacity that's won them this game, and more than likely won them this championship. Now it's the big one. Championships are remembered in one moment. Blocked by James when Steph Curry had his game, the Jordan Poole shots against the Celtics, those half-court shots. In this one, OG Anunoby tipping it in 1.2 seconds left after the chase down block on De'Aaron Fox, which they went and looked at after the game for a potential missed goaltending, but they gave it as a block in the end. And obviously no block, no 3-1 lead, so that block is absolutely huge. Everyone's going to focus on the tip-in, and rightly so. That is what won them the game. But that block is absolutely massive for momentum. He also had 33 points and 7 from 9 from 3, as I mentioned earlier, so he was shooting well, very, very dominant. I mean, OG Anunoby had an absolutely fantastic game, and his odds to win the NBA Finals MVP has shot up an insane amount after just one game. I still think it's probably going to go to Jalen Brunson, to be completely honest. But I mean, hey, if you want a sleeper pick, go for OG Anunoby, because if he has one game, really good game to close out in Game 5, or a couple of good games if this series is extended, he could actually win NBA Finals MVP. Finally then, what does that win mean for the series as a whole? As we mentioned earlier, the Knicks lead 3-1. Only LeBron James has led a team to a finals 3-1 comeback. Does Wemby have that level of hoops in? That's the real question. He is undoubtedly top 3 in the league as a player right now. Can he reach prime Wemby levels at the age of just 22, which is, quite frankly, something he's going to need to do if the Spurs want to come back and win this? I don't know if he's got it in him, but the way he's talking, I mean, he clearly hasn't given up, so a lot of respect has to go to him for that. But if the Spurs have got any chance of winning, you need 30 points a game, 5 blocks, 15 rebounds from Wemby. He needs to be damn near perfect for the rest of this series. Of course, mentally, it must be absolutely devastating for the Spurs. It could easily be 3-1 in the other direction if they hadn't made so many silly, silly errors in the late of this game. And if anyone deserves a championship, it is these guys. And I personally think there's going to be many, many championships to come for this core group of players. But they have to really knuckle down now, because it isn't 3-1 in their direction, it's 3-1 to the Knicks. Mitch Johnson said it best. The Spurs have controlled the outcome of all 4 of these finals games. And if they're going to win, they need to control and win the outcome of the next 3. The final question is, can Jalen Brunson give the first title to New York since '73? Or will there be a new Spurs dynasty started? We'll find out after Saturday night. See you later.